So, welcome to our C2C talks, everybody. Today we talk to Leyla Acaroglu. Is that right, actually?
That was pretty good.
Yeah,
the
really?
G silent, but you were pretty close. It's a
Okay,
jottle.
I was okay. Almost.
You got about like a 7 out of 10 for that one.
Even though we are very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
So, Leyla, let's start with a brief introduction. You're from New York, an Australian designer, and a social scientist and a sustainability provocateur. Mm-hmm. And you were chosen as United Nations Champion of the Earth, as well as you founded 2 design agencies. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, and a school.
And you did a wonderful TED Talk and so many else of those wonderful talks. And you did one of on our Congress, so happy to have you here. So in our first question, could you just describe us in what current projects you are involved right now?
How long do you have? Okay. I work a lot in trying to shift the status quo of the problem arenas we have. At the moment, one of the big projects we're working on is this concept of like how to redesign systems to move to a post-disposable future. Because if we just think about reduction rather than redesign, we're never actually going to be able to solve some of the systemic problems, such as like the cultural normalization of disposability and the material losses and the fact that we don't actually economically attribute any value to the resources that nature provides us for free. So we're really trying to shift in that area. Also, I run the school, the Unschool of Disruptive Design. We run programs around the world. We're really building the capacity for what I would like to call a professional role in creative change making, where organizations, universities, government agencies would be interested in hiring humans who know systems, sustainability science, and creative design to help solve and evolve some of the problems we face. And to that end, we're setting up a facility in a rural property in Portugal. Right. So I'm experimenting with different forms of rural regeneration as well, because I think our generation needs to take responsibility for the soils and for the way we produce food, because all the old people who know how to do that are dying. So I think there's a lot, and I personally like to take my little slice of the solutions pie and work on it and help engage other people with that in the work we do with the Unschool and Disruptive Design. So.
As we tell the people, and you're always telling, we should stop pursuing that linear system. Could you just describe for us in your words why this is very important too?
Yeah, so I mean the linear system is an entirely human construction. Nothing in nature, which is what we come from, because you and I both have to breathe and eat, and we're part of this dynamic interconnected system called Earth. And it does not have any linearity. Like if something isn't connected to something else, it's a stagnant heap, and it quickly gets de-evolves from the system. So it's super important that we understand that this idea of taking resources out of the ground or cutting them off trees, processing them, producing different waste streams, but also creating the products that we want, and then we use them, and then they end up having to go somewhere, but because they were never designed to go back somewhere functionally to contribute back to the system, they often end up in our drawers or in holes in the ground, contributing to a lot, or in the oceans, as we know. So this linear system is built in externalities, meaning there's external products to the system that none of us want. None of us want to know about the sea life that are being destroyed by ocean plastic, and none of us know what to do with our old technology devices, which are exponentially decreasing in the duration of time that we use them. And whilst there are a lot of people working on the end-of-life solutions, like how do we recycle or recapture, we really need to make sure that we green our entire supply chain so that we create products that are fully within a circular system, one that enables us to recapture the raw materials and use them in sustainable ways, but also they create a different value proposition for the consumer, for the individuals, so that we actually see the things that we have in our lives as contributors to a better planet, right? And that requires a shift in mindsets about what we own, how we use them, what we are entitled to, and also how we can move to a regenerative design approach, right? So the things we design give back, because I would love in my lifetime to see humans figure out how to not just be extractors of resources, but also productive contributors back to this beautiful planet that we all share, right?
And you developed the disruptive design method. So what's that design method about?
Cool. So I developed a really simple 3-part process of what's called mining, landscaping, and building. It's a scaffolding for thinking about complex systems when we design. So in the mining phase, as the name would hopefully trigger, it's the idea of digging deep down under the system. And we talk about systems thinking. We have the iceberg model, which is the idea that most people only look at the tip of a problem and they don't see the mass of the weight that's holding up the tip of the iceberg. So in the mining phase, we really deeply learn to love a problem. We explore its components, the parts that make it, but also we suspend the need to solve, because we have this trend at the moment with design thinking and solutioning that we rush to solving a problem without truly understanding it. And whilst that's a really good exercise to learn how to think differently, when we're actually approaching a problem as a government, as a business, as an entrepreneur, we need to deeply understand the problem arena we're working within. Because once we get all those pieces, we can put them together in the landscaping phase, which is a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle, where you systems map, you understand the different connection points, and then it's almost like you can, when you're flying in an airplane and you look down and you can see like the hodgepodge, the way humans have manipulated the land, but essentially that's what you're doing. You're getting this bird's eye view of the complex system. And it's very liberating then, because what seemed complex suddenly becomes a bit more holistic. And it's from there that you start to identify the areas where you could potentially intervene. And I strongly encourage people to work within what I call their sphere of influence. A lot of people deflect responsibility outside of the sphere that they have to affect change, so that they start a process of actively constructing solutions that they have the agency to work within. And that's where the design comes in. It's that ideation, iteration, prototyping, development. And you cycle through this system. You can take a day, it can take a year. But ultimately, we learn to be problem lovers, not problem avoiders. And we develop the systemic framework and the scientific and the creative processes to help really solve and evolve complex problems.
And from your standpoint, what role does the cradle-to-cradle design concept plays in disrupting those linear systems?
Well, I mean, I think cradle-to-cradle definitely provides a framework of considering the materiality and to find ways of creating products that fit within, as you described it in the C2C method, the technosphere and the ecosphere. And I think that idea of how we create things that are harmoniously connected to those is really important. Also, having a certification that people can aspire to, I think, is really aspirationally motivating. So people are like, oh, I want to get to this end goal. And there's a really clear path, given that you guys have been around for a long time and you've really helped to create a status, like a desirability, which I think is really important. I think, though, that all of these methods, these tools, they have to have a form of obsolescence, right? In the sense that eventually we want to get to a point where my ideas and your ideas, they're not needed anymore, because we've fixed this problem. Yeah. So I'm always
it's
like,
done, you know?
Yeah, we've moved to
everybody knows about it, you know?
Yeah, and it becomes normalized. And so I'm really excited about when we can normalize the concepts of sustainable, regenerative, circular, systemic design and consumption, so that we really can start to address some of the bigger, more beautiful challenges that we have as a species on this earth.
And we as Cradle to Cradle Association, we not only discuss the design concept, but also the Cradle to Cradle school of thought. So where we see a beneficial, positive footprint, where we as human beings can be beneficial. So what do you think, what part does the mindset play in problem solving in those days right now? The mindset that people have, seeing the human being as, you know, as being positive or rather negative?
Well, humans have these things called cognitive biases, which are the neurological glitches that we all share. And one of the common cognitive bias is a negativity bias, which is connected to loss aversion. So we find it more emotionally and neurologically taxing to lose something or to experience something bad. And because of that, we avoid it. So when we talk about the negative side of climate change and environmental destruction, whilst we get emotionally responsive, a lot of the time that actually creates a neurological desire to avoid the issue. So we've done ourselves a disservice in the communities that are trying to activate for positive social and environmental change by using the negativity trigger and talking about the catastrophic climate change, the catastrophic issues. Not to say we should ignore that, but this idea of the positive framework, the idea of what I call flipping the scripts on the narrative, don't ignore the reality, but always for every negative thought, think of how you can find a solution or an opportunity in that. And so for me, it's really important that we collectively work towards, like, I hate to use, it's like this made up word, solutioning, which sounds stupid, but this idea that, you know, we can all contribute to finding how to shift the leverage points within a complex system to make change, because the future is undefined, right? And no one's written the future yet. The cool thing is that we all write the future based on our actions or inactions today. So that means that there is no definite outcome that we're going to have catastrophic climate change. If you look at the Montreal Protocol, which was enacted 30 years ago this year, it was the most successful policy of 191, I think, countries coming together. The science on the hole in the ozone layer wasn't even like fully confirmed then, but what's called the precautionary principle was implemented. And there was enough action to redesign the way we have refrigerants through to our hairsprays. So now the hole in the ozone layer is being fixed, right? And I remember being a 7-year-old and hearing that there was going to be this like death by crispifying through the hole in the ozone layer. And now it's like you speak to anyone under the age of 20 and they've probably never heard of this problem before. So climate change can be an obsolete problem, as can the issues with ocean plastic, if we work together to design collaborative, iterative, challenging, just positively disruptive solutions to the complex problems that we face.
And last question, what's your personal motivation being part of the Cradle to Cradle Congress here in Lüneburg?
Well, I'm always excited to work with other creatives and industry and anyone who's interested in challenging the status quo around how we get the things we need and how we change the world in more positive ways. And so it's great to meet, especially so many young people here, which is really exciting. I get to speak a lot with more established people in industries, and they have a lot of power, but they don't necessarily maybe have the same level of excitement about the future as I think our generation has. Yeah. And so that's extremely exciting for me. And as much as I can do to help connect and collaborate with people who are excited about designing a future that works better for all of us, I'm there.
Okay. Leyla, thank you very much.
My pleasure, my pleasure.